he's interviewing Jorge Masvidal, and he says they're just sitting across from each other. They're both sitting on couches, and I'm paraphrasing. I don't remember it word for word, but he's like, "So you were you did some time in jail, huh?" And he's like, "What?
Next."
Well, I don't know about that." And he's like, "No, I don't want to talk about it." He's like, "You don't want to talk about it?" It's like, "Yeah, I mean, those could be rumors. You know, you don't know if I was in jail or not." He's like, "So you don't want to talk about it?" He's like, "Next, let's move along." He's like, "Okay, could we talk about your father?" And he's like, "Yeah, we can talk about him. He was also in jail."
And we're live.
Every single time.
What was
really
the line
cool.
with Crow Cop? He's like, right leg
kick,
hospital, left leg cemetery.
Yeah. Yep. And then there was the famous fight where he fought Gabriel Gonzaga, who everybody thought was a pure jiu-jitsu guy, and Gabriel uncorks a high kick in the second round that flatlines Crow Cop. Crow Cop's Crow Cop. That was one of the first UFC pay-per-views I ever bought.
Yeah.
The first one I ever watched was at Woody's house. We watched John Jones versus Chael Sonnen, and that's what really sparked my interest in the UFC, because that was such a good card. It had Big Country on it. He was on the card, and I was fascinated.
Kyle had an affinity for him.
I was fascinated that like such a man existed within within what I.
And he's pretty good. He peaked as like a top 5, maybe heavyweight.
Yeah. And you know, he'd do that belly rub thing, and it was just like, oh, this is so cool that like any body style, if you're talented enough, seems to be able to rise to like. I mean, this is a pay-per-view we're watching, right?
Dana White hated him. Sorry to cut you off.
Oh,
I think it's interesting. He hated this guy because he didn't look like an athlete. He grew a big gray beard, a big one, like down to your nipples. And it aged him and made him look older. And he looked raggedy and older and nothing like they wanted a UFC top fighter to look like. But there he was, beating guys who looked like they were, I don't know, strong fitness models or something.
For a while he knocked everybody out too, which I find it like, how could Dana hate a guy who's finishing people? Isn't that the bottom line? If you finish people, who gives a shit how you look?
It didn't look right.
Because it was during a time when Dana was really trying to like legitimize the sport and like really make it its own thing, like get it to the level it is right now. I remember like 6 years ago, like somebody was like pointing out to Dana that the numbers were slipping. Right, this is before ESPN. They're like, hey, your numbers are down, this and that. And Dana like had all the stats. He's like, our numbers are down. You know who else's numbers are down? Everyone. And he knew the MLB's numbers. He knew the NBA's numbers. He knew the NFL's numbers. And he's like, they're all like this group's down 2.7%. These guys are down 4.8%. We're down 1.2%. And you know what? Last Saturday night, we had one of the biggest cards we've ever had. The biggest of this year, the biggest in the last 5 years. We're on the rise. And you need to learn a little bit more about sports if you're going to be a sportscaster. And I was just like, oh man, this guy just eats. Like, people give him so much shit. We wouldn't have MMA the way we have MMA if it's not for Dana White. Like,
Have you seen Ariel Helwani's latest like drama? Maybe you're too sick. You haven't been.
I sent you that thing with Street Jesus. But are you talking about something else?
It is something else. Yeah. So you're talking about the prison thing. So UFC 200. This is a while ago, guys. Maybe I'm going to
2016. I remember him.
I was going to call it 5 years ago. I was going to. So, all right. So 5 years ago, Brock Lesnar was coming back. He was a huge draw, and I think he actually became a champ. He left the UFC. He's coming back for UFC 200, and it was just. You guys hear me. Every once in a while, the UFC does a card that makes it a Super Bowl like event. Yeah, and Ariel somehow found it all out and sort of not leaked it, like announced it before the UFC did. They completely didn't forgive him. And the way they tell the story, they told this to Ariel and said, this is off the record, you can't use this. And then he used it anyway. Ariel says this is absolutely untrue. This is not what happened at all. It's 1,000% bullshit. Joe Rogan is saying it, but his source is Dana White. Brendan Schwab is out there saying it, but he's just mindlessly parroting Joe Rogan. And this all sounds reasonable if you follow the scene. Like if you follow the scene, you'll hear this and be like, yeah, sounds right. And he is pissed, and he's like going after everyone with very strong words. And saying like, that's not what happened. That's not how I got that information. They didn't give it to me off the record, and I, backstabbed him. So it's fun drama.
I thought with him and what's his name? Fucking Street Jesus, the fucking
Jorge Masvidal.
He's interviewing Jorge Masvidal, And he says they're just sitting across from each other. They're both sitting on couches, and I'm paraphrasing. I don't remember it word for word, but he's like, "So you were you did some time in jail, huh?" And he's like, "What?
Next.
Well, I don't know about that." And he's like, "No, I don't want to talk about it." He's like, "You don't want to talk about it?" It's like, "Yeah, I mean, those could be rumors. You know, you don't know if I was in jail or not." He's like, "So you don't want to talk about it?" He's like, "Next, let's move along." He's like, "Okay, could we talk about your father?" And he's like, "Yeah, we can talk about him. He was also in jail." And it's just like
the Curb Your Enthusiasm.
The Curb Your Enthusiasm. And it's like, this guy is verging so close to Jim Rome territory, where the guy's just like, "Call me out." I can't remember the name. He's calling
Chris
this guy
Evans.
Chris Evans. Call me that one more time.
His real name. Jim
call
Evans,
me that,
maybe.
Yeah, call me Chris Evans one more time. I just did. I said it to your face. You won't do it again. I bet I will. I bet you won't, Chris. And the guy's like, "Oh," and in Jim Rome's face, and he's flipped him on his back. And Jim Rome's on the floor, like, I saw another. Jim Rome's been on. First of all, I love Jim Rome. He's one of my first like talk radio like heroes before Stern even. I used to listen to him like 2 or 3 hours a day. He came on my local radio station. He's national. He's out of LA, I believe.
Does everyone have the background to get that story? That Jim Evans was a football quarterback, and he was kind of getting a reputation for taking sacks and protecting himself instead of throwing from the pocket and getting the hit. Chris Evans is a female tennis player, so he's basically calling him a girl to his face repeatedly.
Yeah,
and that's why they fought.
I need to find that clip.
Again, there was another instance with Jim Rome, and I don't remember the specifics again, but like they don't really matter. Basically, he's like talking to a football coach or someone in sports. You know, it doesn't matter for the story's sake. But he's just like, "Hey, you know, I heard this, and that, and the other, and it's some edgy shit. Like it's like, oh my God, Jim, you're really going after him here." And the guy's like, "That's not true, but I'm wondering, Jim, do you still beat your wife?" and because I guess Jim Rome had a fucking domestic dispute at some point and beat his wife.
It wasn't just the
no.
You know that question, right? Like when you stop beating your wife is a it's a famous question. Sort of leading question where you can't answer it correctly. There is no any.
Oh, well, maybe that's the case. But in any case, Jim is like, "Hey, come on. That's a little much, I think." Is it? I don't think it is at all.
She thought so too.
Yeah, it was. I don't know. I like Jim Rome though. I think he has this really interesting like fan base.